Hey everybody, Mike Dana here, welcome back. This is the second video in our series, A New View of the Modes. This is an overview, and what we're going to be doing in this short video here is looking at some important things about the modes of the major scale. Now, other scales have modes as well that are very cool in jazz. We're going to get to those later on. So for this session, we're looking at the modes of the major scale. And our focus, again, is going to be on this new way of looking at the modes, not so much as the Dorian as what you get when you start on the second note of a scale. I kind of think of that as the old way. As improvisers, we need to use these modes when we solo in the context of specific chords and chord progressions. So to me, it makes total sense to relate how the modes are constructed with how chords are constructed, since those two things go together all the time. So we're going to look at four specific topics here. The first thing we're going to look at is the three distinct qualities that modes possess. They are either a major, or they're dominant, or they're minor. And what will really help you as you sort all this stuff out is to focus on the third or the seventh. That could be of the chord, that could be of the mode. The reason why the third is important is if, for example, it's a major sound, it has to have a major third. Same thing for dominant. If it's a minor chord, it has to have a lowered third. If it's a major chord and it has a seventh at all, they don't all have sevenths, but if they do, in a major chord, it's going to be a major seventh. In a dominant chord, that seventh must be a lowered seventh. And in minor chords, if there's a seventh present, it's usually a lowered seventh, not always, but mostly. So those are the things we're going to be looking at. Is this mode a major or a dominant or a minor sound? Second thing we're going to look at is what do we have to alter, what do we have to change of the parent scale in order to get the mode. For example, let's say we want to create a Lydian mode. Well, the Lydian mode has a raised fourth. So if I know what an F major scale is, and I know that the fourth note of that F major scale is B flat, then to make it be a Lydian sound on F, in other words, F Lydian, I would have to raise that B flat up to B natural. So we would then say, well, the Lydian alteration is that it has a raised fourth. Similar way, if you have a C major scale that you want to be C mix Lydian, that alteration is a lowered seventh. So you can see that what we're trying to do is keep the root constant here and look at how the mode changes to fit the chord that it's going to be used with. It'll make a lot more sense as we get down the road a little bit further, trust me. Okay, in addition to the quality of the chord and the alterations, we want to look at what specific kind of chord does that mode go with. For example, as you can see from the little grid that we'll talk about more in a moment, let's say you have a chord symbol and it's an F minor 9. Well, you could certainly use an F Dorian sound over that. You could use an F Aeolian sound over that. But you can't really use an F Phrygian sound over that, even though the Phrygian is a minor mode, but the Phrygian has a lowered ninth in its sound and the chord has a regular ninth. So it's important to take note of what notes are raised or lowered in the scale and how that affects its relationship to the chord. And the fourth thing we're going to look at is the chord function, or the type of chord progression. And here's where your knowledge of jazz theory might come in kind of handy. If you know what we mean by tonic, tonic is the chord that sort of names the key. It's the chord that feels like home. So for example, if you're playing an F minor blues, a nice mode choice to use over that, especially when you're starting off, is the F Aeolian, because it seems to work for most of the chords in an F minor blues. If you're playing a tune that uses a lot of 2-5 progressions, the Dorian is a great mode over minor 2 chords. And again, all this is going to be covered in much more detail as we do a lesson on each one of the modes. So fear not. You should have, and I hope you have, downloaded from the website a handout that has 2 pages in it. The first page in the handout is called A New View of the Modes, and it's kind of a grid with a very attractive little spectrum color effect there to show you how these modes move from brighter sounds to darker sounds. And that happens by changing the alterations. And basically what happens is the brightest mode, in my opinion, is the Lydian. It has a raised or sharped fourth in it. The darkest mode is the Locrian, and it has a lowered second and third and fifth and sixth and seventh. So as we look at the grid, we can see that as the chords move from brighter to darker, they move from major to dominant to minor, and we subtract that sharp and we start adding flats, and that's how we achieve these different qualities of chords. The second page of the handout is a kind of a cool little thing. What I've done there is I've created all of the modes, all beginning on the note C, and of course it's treble and bass clef for whatever instrument you happen to play. So that's kind of cool because you can really see how these alterations affect not only the quality of the mode itself, but the chord that the mode is used with. And again, that's super important. So this wraps up our introductory part of A New View of the Modes. Next stop, look for all those individual lessons on each one of the modes of the major scale. See you there.